perfect storm is looming and we're heading for a global collapse around about 2030. Now I want to give a few ideas of how I would come to such a conclusion. Now the human population has been multiplying, it's tripled in my lifetime, it's heading towards a limit. We've hit 7.5 billion and at around about 8 or 9 billion the whole thing will collapse. We are destroying the natural environment and driving other species into extinction, but as a species, as a peoples, we don't care. You and I, individuals, may care, but as a group we have religious beliefs that hold that there is a God who created everything just for our use and we can do whatever we like with it. Now, the planet is finite, so the question is, where is the limit? When will it come? How will it come? These concerns were voiced quite widely back in the 1960s through into the 1970s. They're largely ignored today. And the topic was taken up very seriously. It's a very complicated situation, so you need quite a bit of study and research. For example, consider land. If you take land for a larger city, you no longer have the land available for growing crops. Water, if you need water for your housing, for your industry, you no longer have the water to put on your crops. And if you take it all out of the river, this river dries up. So it's worth having a very good look at it and building models. And models were built in the 1970s. Many people will be familiar with the limits to growth. It was a very simple model. One world, just a few sectors, and it told a great deal. A lot more models were then built and tested. Bariloche, Masarykovich-Pestel, Sarum, Fuji. These are the names of some of these big models, and every model that I've mentioned took a whole team to build and to work with. A lot of work. And they told me, when I spent about a decade studying them, it takes quite a bit of work, that the crash was likely around about 2030. And as well as identifying the time scale for this reaching of limits on the global scale, it gave an idea of where the collapse might first come and be serious. The major feature of the crash were the shortage of land and water for growing food and starvation in Southeast Asia, where the population was and has continued increasing. There would then be social collapse, widespread conflict, no surprises there. To that picture, I went ahead and added the understanding of economic overshoot, what happens when there's overproduction, that is when there's a successful production of goods, and then the existence of excess capital, which is big money, which takes over control of the world, and a capture of our whole political system by the military-industrial complex, which I have labelled inverse fascism. This is where, in contrary to fascism, where the state controls the corporations, this is a situation where the corporations control the state, and there is a central control well away from any democracy. Other features which were added into a forecast as you look towards the evolution of the world is an oil peak, which was forecast and has happened. Then there was the change to the environment by the immense human activity, climate change. Now, one thing that must be recognised about climate change, which is, it's said this is the big problem that faces the world. Well, it isn't. It's additional to the other problems. Basic problem, overpopulation. Overpopulation, eventual lack of food, eventual shortage of water, because water is needed for so many different reasons. And we also know that by now that universal prosperity is simply not possible. Now, it's usual in a talk like this or a statement like this to end with an optimistic note. Oh, we've got to now do this, that and the other and save the world. I'm sorry, it isn't possible. There's no 10 years to save the world. I've heard that for my whole lifetime. 10 years to save the world, 10 years goes by, 10 years to save the world, and so it goes. So the challenge we have is to face the awful reality and to deal with the mess that has been created.